I broke up with my ex-fiancée of 4 years 2 weeks ago after catching her in a huge lie and then finding out 3 days ago that she committed suicide because I wouldn't take her back. 3 days ago, I got the call that shattered me. My ex-fiancée, the woman I had spent 4 years of my life with, had killed herself. And everyone keeps saying the same thing. It's because you wouldn't take her back. When her sister said those words to me, my knees buckled. I almost dropped the phone. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe. And in that exact moment, a storm of guilt, anger, and confusion exploded inside me. Because just 2 weeks earlier, I'd caught her in a lie so big it destroyed everything we had. A lie so heavy that even now, I can still hear my own voice yelling at her, the sound of her crying, the slam of the door when I walked out. Now she was gone, and all I could think was, did I push her to this? Or was there more to the story than anyone was telling me? It started 2 weeks ago. Back then, we were still engaged, planning a wedding. At least, that's what I thought. We had picked a date, put down deposits, even had family involved. I was 28, she was 27, and we'd been together since college. She was my first real love, the one I thought I'd spend my life with. On the outside, everything looked perfect. We posted our pictures, got congratulations from friends, and talked late at night about kids, a house, all of it. I thought she was my forever. But that night, 2 weeks ago, I stumbled into something that cracked the whole thing open. It wasn't like I was snooping. I wasn't that type. But her phone buzzed when she was in the shower, and I saw a preview of a message pop up on the screen. At first, it didn't click. It was just a heart emoji, can't wait to see you again, red heart, from a guy's name I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe there was some explanation. But when she came out of the bathroom, I asked her straight up, whose name? Her face went pale, and that was the moment I knew. She tried to spin it first. She said he was just a friend from work, that it wasn't what it looked like. But when I pressed, her story kept breaking apart. The more I asked, the more she tripped over her own lies. Finally, after an hour of shouting and crying, she admitted it. She had been seeing him for months. Months. While we were planning a wedding. While I was saving for our future. While I was picturing her walking down the aisle. My chest felt like it had been ripped open. I couldn't look at her. Couldn't even stand to be in the same room. She reached for me, begged me to listen, swore it didn't mean anything, that it was just a mistake. But you don't accidentally build a second relationship while planning a marriage. So I walked out. I left the ring on the table, slammed the door, and told her it was over. And I meant it. The next 2 weeks were a blur. She called me every day, sometimes crying, sometimes screaming, sometimes begging. She showed up at my work once, making a scene in the parking lot. She left notes in my mailbox. She texted my family members. I ignored most of it, not because I didn't feel anything. Believe me, I felt everything, but because I knew if I even cracked the door open, she'd pull me back in. Still, a part of me wondered if she would eventually calm down, maybe move on. But then came a call 3 days ago, and the words that are now etched into my mind. She's gone. She killed herself. She said she couldn't live without you. And here I am, stuck in this endless loop of pain. Did I do the right thing by ending it? Or did I destroy her? And the worst part, the part one can't shake, is that I don't even know if what they're telling me is the full truth. Because deep down, something about it doesn't feel right. The night I got the call, I didn't sleep. I just sat on my couch staring at the wall, her voice echoing in my head. Not her real voice, but the last voicemail she'd left me a week earlier. I can't live without you. Please, please don't leave me like this. At the time, I rolled my eyes and deleted it. Now, I wished I hadn't. Now, it sounded like a warning I ignored. I kept thinking, what if I'd answered one of her calls? What if I'd just gone to meet her, even once? Would she still be alive? The guilt clawed at me so hard, I felt like I was suffocating. But alongside the guilt was something else. Something darker. A whisper I tried to push away. What if it isn't my fault at all? The funeral was fast. Too fast. 3 days after she died, they were already putting her in the ground. Her family barely looked at me, except her sister, who shot me daggers the whole time. At one point, she hissed under her breath, "This is on you." Her mom cried through the entire service. Her dad didn't say a word. I stood there like a ghost, not knowing if I even had the right to be there. I wasn't her fiancée anymore. I wasn't her anything. But then something strange happened. When it was over, one of her cousins pulled me aside. She spoke in a low voice, glancing around like she didn't want anyone else to hear. She kept a journal. The cousin said, "I think you should read it." I blinked at her. Why? She wrote things about you. About what happened. And some of it doesn't add up. Before I could ask more, she slipped a small notebook into my hand and walked away. I stared at it, the weight of it heavy, almost burning. A journal. Her words. Her side of the story. Did I even want to know? That night, I opened it. The first few pages were what you'd expect. Daily thoughts, little rants about work, dreams about the wedding, cute notes about me. But as I flipped through, the tone changed. The entries got darker. Angry. She wrote about feeling trapped. About wanting to run away. About someone making promises to her that she was afraid wouldn't come true. And then I saw a name. Not mine. A man's name. The same name I'd seen on her phone 2 weeks ago. She wasn't just lying to me. She was writing about him. But the part that made my blood run cold was the last entry. It wasn't sad like a goodbye. It was angry. And it ended with one line that I can't get out of my head. If he thinks he can just leave me and walk away, he's going to regret it. I read that last line over and over until the words blurred. If he thinks he can just leave me and walk away, he's going to regret it. That wasn't the voice of a woman ready to end her life. That wasn't despair. That was anger. I closed the journal and just sat there, my hands shaking. My ex-fiancée, was supposed to have killed herself out of heartbreak because I wouldn't take her back. That's what everyone said. That's what her sister screamed at me. But if that was true, why did her final written words sound like a threat? Regret. What did she mean by that? And regret how? For the next 2 days, I carried the journal everywhere. I reread the entries like I was looking for clues in a puzzle I didn't even know existed. Some were normal, everyday complaints. Others sounded like someone who was splitting in two. One page she'd gush about wedding plans. The next she'd rage about me, not noticing her or not loving her enough. But scattered throughout were references to him. The other guy. I'll call him Mark. She wrote about secret phone calls, long drives, feeling alive again when she was with him. But the strangest part was how uncertain she sounded. Like she wasn't sure if she could trust him. Like he was promising things, but never delivering. And then, 2 entries before the last, she wrote something that made my stomach twist. He told me everything will work out. But if it doesn't, he says I know too much. I don't know what to think anymore. Too much. Know too much about what? That night, I sat in my car outside her apartment building. I hadn't been there since the breakup. The lights in her unit were off, the windows dark. It looked abandoned now, cold and hollow. I almost left, but something kept me there, like a weight pressing on my chest. I thought about knocking on her neighbor's door, asking if they'd seen anything. I thought about going to her parents, telling them about the journal. But I didn't. Not yet. Because another thought had started growing in my head. What if she didn't kill herself? What if something else happened? The idea sounded insane, even to me. But once it rooted in my mind, I couldn't shake it. The angry last entry. The strange line about knowing too much. The way her death had been rushed through. Funeral in 3 days. No questions asked. And then there was the biggest question of all. Where was Mark in all of this? Not once at the funeral. Not a single mention of him. Not even a whisper. If he was such a big part of her life, where the hell was he now? The next day, I decided to look him up. It took less than an hour of scrolling through her old social media posts before I found him tagged in a group photo from her work. Tall, athletic, big smile. His profile was private, but his picture was enough. And when I saw where he worked, just 10 minutes from me, my pulse spiked. I suddenly knew what I had to do. I was going to find Mark. And I was going to ask him, face to face, what really happened to her. I didn't sleep the night before I went to see Mark. My mind was spinning with 1,000 possible scenarios. Maybe he'd laugh in my face. Maybe he'd admit everything. Maybe he'd swing at me the second I said her name. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of his workplace, my stomach was twisted in knots. It was a plain office building, nothing suspicious about it. People walked in and out carrying coffee cups, chatting casually, like this was just another Tuesday. But for me, this was war. I waited in my car until I saw him. Tall, athletic, same face I'd seen in the picture. He was laughing with a coworker as they headed toward the entrance. For a second, I almost chickened out. He looked so normal. Could this guy really have been tangled up in all of this? But then I remembered the journal. Her words. He says I know too much. That was enough. I got out of the car and called his name. Mark. He turned, confused at first, then wary. Yeah. On my name. His expression shifted instantly. The smile fell. His shoulders stiffened. He knew exactly who I was. We stood there in the parking lot, staring at each other like enemies, sizing each other up. Finally, I said, we need to talk. About her. His jaw tightened. Not here. He led me around the side of the building, out of sight. The second we were alone, I could feel the tension crackling between us. She's dead, I said flatly. And I know you were with her. I read her journal. His eyes flickered just for a moment before he masked it. That doesn't concern you anymore. That response sent a chill down my spine. She wrote about you. I pressed. She wrote that you made promises. That she knew too much. What does that mean? He shook his head quickly. You don't understand. Then make me understand. For a moment, I thought he was going to say nothing. Then he muttered, she wasn't supposed to write that down. My blood ran cold. I demanded answers, but he shut down after that. Said he had to get back to work. Said I should let it go. Said digging would only make things worse. The way he looked at me when he said that, it wasn't a warning. It was a threat. I drove home shaking. I didn't know what I'd expected. Some confession, maybe, but not that. Not him admitting she wasn't supposed to write things down. That night, I went back through the journal again. I noticed something I hadn't before. The last few pages had impressions on them, like she had pressed the pen hard, maybe even written more than what was still there. I held the page up to the light, tilted it, and there it was, faint indentations. Words that had been written, then torn out. My heart pounded as I traced the marks with my finger. I couldn't make it all out, but I saw one word clear as day. A name. Not mine. Not Mark's. Someone else entirely. And if she had torn it out, maybe she didn't want anyone to know. Or maybe someone else didn't want me to know. I couldn't get the torn out page out of my head. That missing name felt like the key to everything. The clue she left behind, maybe by accident, maybe on purpose. I barely slept that night. I just kept flipping back and forth through the journal, squinting at the faint indentations, tracing my fingers over the grooves until my skin hurt. Finally, I thought I saw it clearly enough. The name was short, just 4 letters. Evan. I didn't know an Evan. Not from her work, not from her friends, not from any part of her life that I'd seen. But she had written it, pressed it into the page hard enough to leave a ghost behind, and then ripped the sheet out like it was too dangerous to keep. Why? The next morning, I started digging. I checked her social media again, scrolling years back this time. Hundreds of posts, photos, tags. Nothing obvious. I felt like I was chasing shadows. Then, in a group picture from 2 summers ago, I saw him. A guy standing at the edge of the photo, half smiling, his hand on her shoulder. The caption mentioned a friend's lake house party. His tag, Evan. I clicked. His profile was private, but the small bio under his name made my stomach drop. Operations manager at company, the same company where Mark worked. That night, I drove back to her apartment. The place still looked abandoned, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was inside. I walked up the stairs, heart pounding, and tried the door. Locked, of course, but when I pressed my ear to the wood, I swore I heard something. A shuffle, a breath. I stepped back fast, my pulse hammering. Was someone inside, or was I just losing it? The next day, I tried calling Mark. He didn't answer. Tried messaging him. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished. And then, as if on cue, I got a text from an unknown number. One word. Stop. I stared at it for what felt like forever, my hands shaking. Before I could even reply, another message came through. You don't know what you're dealing with. No name. No clue. But deep down, I already knew who it was from. Evan. That night, I sat in my car again, this time parked across from our old building. My chest was tight, my thoughts spiraling. I had started this whole thing thinking I was just a guy who lost his fiancée, a guy drowning in guilt because she had ended her life. But now I wasn't so sure she had. And as I stared at the dark windows of her apartment, I saw something that froze me in place. A shadow, moving inside. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, convinced I was imagining it. But when I looked again, it was still there, someone pacing, slow and steady, just beyond the curtains. She was supposed to be gone. So who the hell was in her apartment? I went back the next morning, certain the shadow I'd seen was just my grief messing with me. But when I reached her door, something stopped me cold. A single slip of paper was tucked into the crack. My name was written on it. Shaking, I unfolded it. Only 5 words. Words that made my blood run ice cold. She was never meant to die.